We're back with another video on Scythe faction strategies. In this one, we're going to be talking about Bjorn and Mechs, the Nords.
The Nordic kingdom, yes. Up in the desolate wastelands of the north, the Nords ride in to do what? It really depends, because honestly, the Nordic faction is one of the toughest factions to wrap your head around.
So they're not about pillaging and plundering and Viking shenanigans and...
Oh, they can do that, totally. Yeah. But their start is really weird. Like, many factions think, oh, I'm stuck in my tiny little island. Okay, I have this resource, and that's what I'm going to be doing at the start of the game. Mm-hmm. But these guys are, like, super flexible. They can do anything if
they can swim across rivers.
That's right. They're workers only, though, not their hero or not their mechs. So only the workers. But here's the thing, right? Many people think, oh, I'm gonna stay to my island. I'm gonna get some metal. I'm gonna build a mech on the island, and then I'm gonna get them out somehow. Mm-hmm. But no, these guys can totally, from the get-go, spread out, and then because whenever you build a mech, you can build it on a place with a worker. You can deploy your military, your mechs outside of the starting island. And that's a way to sort of get your feet off the ground. So in a very...
So you think that these guys suffer from the burden of too much choice at the start of the game?
Not entirely. You're right. I think the flexibility is the key, because depending on their mission card, they can go for whatever suits them. And depending on their bottom board, they can choose to focus on the resources that matter the most. Yeah. But I still think it holds, unless you have a mission card which needs you to have a low workforce. Ideally, your first starting move may be to do a move action and actually get your guys out into a place with a village. So one problem with these guys, unlike the Roosevelt Union, which you saw before, is they don't start with a place on a village, but they have immediate access to two surrounding villages over here. Yeah. So whether they go to the left or to the right, it's their call, right? I would argue that...
So their strength is flexibility?
Yeah.
Turn one move... You're saying is move.
That's right. Turn one is to sort of move and get things started. The only issue I see with the villages is that it's kind of hard, once you're at the village, to get them to a place that makes metal. Because from here you can either access wood or oil or grain, and from here it's oil or grain, but the metal is all the way out over here.
You want to send both the villages, or maybe one and then send the other one to metal?
I've seen people do both. Okay. I think one is good, and honestly, I think a good start is to send. So when you take your first move action, move this guy over here, and then move your hero, say, over there or possibly over there. At some point later on, because you're not going to get a mech that early on, you may want to take some actions producing and then do another move wherein you move a worker manually and your hero to the actual export token to take advantage of that token. So that's sort of like a reasonable starting point. But yeah, mechs are kind of hard for these guys. I mean, if you really want a mech, this is the flexibility part, right? Maybe you don't do this. Maybe instead you move this guy here and you move this guy here, and boom, now you're possibly making mechs with some trade actions and getting the metals, and you can make the mech over here, which is nice. That's a possibility. And if you do this, at some point you'll have a bunch of workers produced. So, and then you can get the metal that you've cashed in through trading and producing over here, and you can then start moving these guys around the board. So that's a possibility as well. I would argue in terms of mech abilities that Riverwalk is also not a fantastic choice, because ideally, yes, your hero is kind of stuck here for a while, but you want to get your mechs out and grabbing various areas of the board, trying to get to places where you can get the wood to build in places that match the victory condition over there for the buildings. And it's kind of the starting focus. Of course, Riverwalk works as well. That's why I say they're so flexible. You can kind of build them anywhere you'd like, depending on what cards you have. But yeah, they are kind of the toughest to wrap your head around, precisely because they don't have a particular one set strategy that you want to do. Do you want to upgrade your stuff? You can totally do that. Do you want to build mechs? Sure, you can do that too. Everything is within reach.
So since there's no formulaic strategy here, as we saw with the Roosevets, what are the tell signs? What do you want to do? We know we've talked about you want to be hitting that bottom action every turn. So as you're doing that, you want to be focusing on
the top actions that match produce and trade. Primarily.
Primarily.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing, and that's why they're so flexible. So Great point, actually. I didn't even mention that. So, look at the produce and the trade action, look at the bottom action, and try to line those things up, ideally, right? In this particular case here, we can see their produce is based on oil and their trade is based on metals. So, maybe your starting move might be, you want to keep this guy here because he's going to make metal or make oil, or maybe, move this guy over here and then move this guy over here. And in this way you can produce metal. And at some later point, once you have a bunch of babies over here, you can send these guys over here to start making oil and take advantage of the oil and metal as you go back and forth. And this is a great spawning point because, hey, it's a mine location and you can start spreading out from there. So yeah, totally possible.
With this faction, we're kind of looking to be more secluded, more isolated, like putting our stuff out there maybe and doing the mechs.
Yeah,
possibly last.
That's true. I mean, it's entirely possible because your workers are so spread out that they might be easy pickings for other factions. But ideally, you have a plan to get a mech out so you can defend them at some point in time. They also start with 4 military power, which is among the higher amounts. So it's a little. You can kind of stretch yourself a bit further before you have to start bolstering to keep your production up. Yeah. Again, these guys are very, very flexible. And let's look at the mech abilities because this sort of like adds a bit more. You mentioned this idea of like isolationists, and I think one of the best mech abilities is the artillery one, which is before combat, if you pay a single power, your opponent gets -2 power. So in this way, every single time your opponent picks on you, they're going to lose military power. And if your opponents are trying to get to 16, you're like,
I don't want to fight.
I don't want to fight these guys. I want to get to 16, and maybe I'll think about it, right? Yeah. So it's a great deterrent to sort of discourage people from coming after you. Yeah. So that's kind of their thing. Of course, I still think +1 speed is a great start early on if you're not focusing on river walking, which I don't think you need to, because really only your hero is stuck there. There's an argument to be had. Okay, you want your hero to get to a place where with the explorer tokens,
sure. Stuck as well, no?
No, mechs don't trigger. Only the hero can trigger the
yeah, but I mean your mechs will deploy whatever you have a worker.
Yeah, the idea is you want to get your workers out, and why bother doing that? Yeah, it's okay. it's lots of things in this game. There's also Seaworthy, which I think is maybe a better alternative to River Walk, which is the idea that you can now move onto rivers and you can also retreat onto them. So there's only 2 factions in the base game that deal with rivers. There's the Nords and I believe the Polania as well. The other factions don't even touch rivers, although in the expansion we see the Japanese shogunate deal with them as well. But this sort of gives them this great place to store their guys and wait things out if an opponent's nearby. So a bit of flexibility there. The Riverwalk is connected to wood and metal, and basically there's only one place they can offload from, which is this tile over there. Well, it's like from there to there, so it's like,
Which also plays into the whole theme of like they're kind of isolationists.
Yeah, they're kind of like isolationists, but very flexible. I'll be honest, I have not seen a game where they've won yet, but I'm assuming one day when
I'm sure we're going to get somebody in the comments saying otherwise.
I'm sure. The internet is great like that. That's pretty much it for the Nordic faction. Any more questions you want?
I'm getting the feel that you kind of want to playing your little Euro game on your own. Get all your buildings out, get all your mechs, your enlists, everything. Just get everything out.
That's
do your own thing.
That's right.
And maybe get into a fight much later on.
I think with the interesting part is. I usually recommend for upgrades, you always get the bolster one first, just because it makes it more efficient. But I can see an argument for these guys maybe wanting their mill building, so they can produce on the hex, and maybe their third produce, because their workers are going to be spread out a bit more, so you can collect a dinkling of resources from different locations, so you can take
which plays into the whole flexibility strategy.
Yeah, that's right. And because they have access to wood, they can reasonably think about building a building early on, which could be the mine to get them off this right on. But I don't think that's a good idea. So I think for the Nordic faction, they might be very interested in the actual building objective over there. So like in this case, it's building on mines. So maybe try to take advantage of that. Okay, so that's the Nordic faction.
So to sum it up, Nordics, be flexible. Produce on as many spaces as you can. Try to move on to a village early on. Get more babies. Get your mill out, get your third produce tile, get a lot of various resources to be flexible and move around here
That's
and
right.
there. Get your seaworthy mech first and foremost and deter people from fighting with you, so that you can continue on hammering your own little Eurogame solo, while everybody else is fighting
amongst each other.
for everything else.
That's right. +1 speed is also fine too. But
Yeah.
the artillery is a great choice.
And make sure you keep hitting those bottom actions every single turn. Okay, so that's it for the Nordics. We're gonna be back with the next video with
Polania.
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 So, watch that video.
That's right. Okay. Hey guys.